Hello and welcome, people of the YouTubes, to what might be the second ever Shadowhawk Explains video. I think I've called other videos Explains in the past, but really, I only did the one, and that was the first part of Endless Space, and I never got back to that. Which, yeah, is on the long list of things I should get back to at some stage. But in the meantime, this is Shadowhawk Explains, Tabletop Simulator, and Caverna. And the way I'm going to explain Caverna, at least, is I'm going to run through a free-player game. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to show off how to basically utilize and manipulate Tabletop Simulator in such a way that, you know, you can actually probably play these games. So, simple navigation first. Spacebar brings you back to basically the out-zoomed menu, which is occasionally useful. Mouse wheel zooms in. There are other ways to do that, but I'm going to go through things in order. Right-click and hold to rotate around. Left-click to drag and pick up items. Once you have an item picked up, you can slam it down to the ground while still holding it, like that. Though I don't recommend doing that at any point. You can right-click to place an object where you want. Go with the left mouse button first, and then the right, and you're done. In fact, actually, I think you can just go... Yeah, go to the left, and you're done. It's placed there, and that's how you generally place things without having to worry about a grid align system, which we're not using in this particularly, even though it could be useful. Other things. Yep, rotate. Left, right, up, down. WASD for traditional navigation around the map, and of course space for home. Other important key, and the most important key you will ever use in this game, is the Alt key. The Alt key gives you a zoomed version, which you can zoom further in and out with the mouse wheel, if you need to, on anything which is actually a physical card in the game. Because Agricola uses a preset board for some of it, the Alt key won't work on this. However, you can press the Z key and zoom in. And you can zoom in even further if you want to. Z puts you back out. I'll probably mention a few other things as and when they occur to me when things happen. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to a free-player game of Caverna. Now, this is the spiritual successor by the same company of Agricola. And I love Agricola. It's a complicated as hell game to try and learn at the start. I think Caverna's a bit easier in that regard. But I think Agricola has a little more randomness and strategy than Caverna, based on a couple of test run-throughs I've had of this game thus far. But this is why I'm going to play a free-player game, because these sorts of games, especially when there's one or two preset strategies, it generally helps if you have an odd number of players, because then you sort of have two people doing the traditional strategies and one third person who sort of is doing it almost an in-between, but also being aggressively anti those strategies at various times, and it creates a sort of rock, paper, scissors effect, almost in theory. Now, Caverna is a game where we have dwarves. They are level 0 dwarves, because this is the easiest way I could actually determine levels on this. Again, I'll get there when we get there. Each turn, starting with the starting player, who will be white to begin with, which, yeah, I realise it's me there, but, you know, player 1, white, me, that's my avatar in the game. And each turn we'll be placing workers onto the board and gaining benefits based on where that worker goes. We can either go to strip mining for get some ore, later stone, I'll explain how this goes, as well as 2 wood. There's drift mining, which allows you to excavate your home. Excavating the home is fairly important because you need rooms to build dwellings for dwarves. Dwarves only live underground, so you have to basically excavate the mountain to basically, yeah, allow you to get more stuff. You can also, down here, clear out bits of the forest and turn it into farmland, because while dwarves are traditionally miners, they do require some food. In fact, they require a lot of food. There are various points in the game where there will be harvests, and we must pay 2 food for every dwarf we currently have. There are also 7 potential harvests, which I'll get to when we get there. So I'm just going to go, I'm going to start the game effectively, so I can explain as I'm doing things. For setup purposes, the first and second player in the game get 1 food, the third player gets 2 food. The starting player can change if anybody selects this tile, the starting player. They pick up 1 food and 2 ore and become the starting player, so they'll begin the next round. I should also just quickly explain what the resources, how the resources go on here. If the resource is like any of the ones along the top and has a arrow and a little circle, and I think this ore one does as well actually. Yes, it does. And the logging, then that resource will accumulate on there each turn until that tile is taken. So if a tile, say drift mining, gets ignored for 3 or 4 turns, it will have 3 or 4 stone on it. Stone is important because you need it to buy these things, which are the cabins, which we can furnish later and get dogs. Dogs are helpful. There's also the imitation phase, which allows you to pay for food to use a space that's been used by somebody else. Could be important, but food is fairly valuable, as you have to feed people a lot in this game. So, we're going to begin then with white, and I'm going to first off go... Oh, actually, before we... Gotta do this. Whenever a new round begins, you flip the next card of these in sequence. I did shuffle these beforehand, but you can generally have these stacked up like so. I'm going to shuffle them again, actually, just because. If you drop a pile of cards, it'll actually, as long as they're facing the same way, become a deck of 3. The number 3 there determines how many cards are in a pile. This also happens with food, so you can see that's 2 food. This is just on its own, so it just comes up as food. You can pick up with the left mouse button, shake it around a bit, and that represents it has been shuffled. So I'll then place those out there. If you want to pick up multiple things at the same time, you can go left click and right click to pick that up as well, right click to pick that up as well. Drop, and that should, except that it didn't, form another deck, so I had to re-pick the top card off to get it to form. Anyway, I've shuffled that again, so, you know. That goes there, that goes there. Beginning of round 1, then, we flip this, which is blacksmithing. Blacksmithing allows us to convert any number of 1 to 8 ore to create a weapon of strength 1 to 8. Basically, it levels up the dwarves from 0 to 0 to 1 to 8, depending on the amount of ore we have. These resources will have already accumulated. I've already set that up for start of game. At the start of each round, I will have to put the resources on according to what the arrows say. So, the other thing you can do with blacksmithing then is go on an adventure. If you have a dwarf with a weapon, he can go off and grab resources. He goes on a quest, and depending on his level, you can pick up 3 items, which basically of that level or lower. So if a level 3 dwarf comes along, or key again to expand this and zoomed, I can take anything, either a donkey, which is on the right, a stone, a sheep, a grain, a dog, some wood, or I can level up everybody's weapons by 1 level. At the end of the expedition, they also level up again, so that after expedition or weapons plus 1 actually allows a second level increase. And these get gradually more powerful and more beneficial the higher up they go. As a counterbalance to this, though, dwarves must be placed on the board in ascending order. So any level 0 dwarves must be played before a level 1 dwarf, and then a level 14 dwarf has to go last. They can override this with rubies. Rubies are effectively the trump card, can be traded for a lot of stuff. In fact, 2 can be traded for a cavern, 1 and a food can be traded for cattle, and 1 basically trades for any resource, or any minor thing anyway, or you can play a dwarf out of order if I need to urgently get my level 13 dwarf, say, on the board first. And you will need to, because of course adventure tiles could be taken up early. I've done a lot of exposition here, let's actually get some gameplay going on. So to start with, I am going to go for some drift mining. Actually, I'm going to go excavation, because I actually think the drift mining is a more valuable space here. I'm also going to try and be mean to myself here with a third... I'm going to try and actually screw myself over as much as I can, because that's how a real game should be. So since I've gone there, I get any of the stone and resources that are on there at the moment, so 1 stone. In addition, I can play either... Sorry, just leave that in. One of these 2 tiles. These 2 tiles on this thing are represented by this. F allows you to flip a tile over, which sometimes is very helpful if the tile is conveniently double-sided. So, I can put this onto any of the mountain spaces in any agreeable way, and I'm probably going to lock the board once I do this, which is L key, and that means it cannot be picked up by anybody unless you press the L key to unlock it and move it along. You can also right-click lock if... You can also right-click lock if you so wish, and that also holds it in place in the same manner. So I'm going to do that, and the reason I'm doing this is I want to move towards this +2 food space here. You'll notice on the field spaces and also there, if you cover that space with that, you will pick up the food immediately. In this case, you found a small underground lake which has some fish, very small underground stream which has some fish, and more fish here. Basically all fish. Also, you can find wild boars in the forest if you can get a forest tile out to there. So that's my first. I have 1 stone, 1 food, and we move on to player red. Now, player red has a few options here, but I think what player red is going to do to start with is go and grab all of the wood. Wood is fairly important in this game for various upgrades and things. You also need it to build fences, or pastured lands actually, I believe. But the tile hasn't come up yet. It will come up soon. I think actually one of these 2 is going to be sheep farming, which allows you to get a load of sheep. So she's going to pick up wood, and I don't know. Maybe she, I don't know. Whoever player red is, they've got some wood. Wood also does not stack particularly well because they're designed as actual objects. But it doesn't matter too much. These are bacon cards. You get these whenever you fail to feed a dwarf, and they're worth -3 points at the end of a game. Point systems is worth explaining towards the end of the game or a bit further in. So, space for home. So green player now has a few interesting potential options. But I think what they're going to do is they are going to see if they can get an early weapon. And because they want an early weapon that's the best they can, they're going to go straight for ore mining. Now, ore mining gets you the 2 ore, and means that they have a reasonable chance of picking up a weapon next turn. It'll only be level 2, but they'll be able to get some resources out of that as well. But it means, and because she's the only one who has ore in the first round of things, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to prevent her from doing that. Her? I don't know. Everybody's a her until I say otherwise, or if I change it midway through. So, because everybody's now had a turn, we cycle back around to white player. Now, because nobody took the second drift mining space, and I'm feeling like that would be a reasonably beneficial thing to do, I'm going to take this as well. So I now have 2 stone. I also get to place another tile, but this can only be the one that is tunnel and cavern. And I'm going to place that here. Because I've now covered the 2 food space, I can now pick up 2 food from the bag, which also should really be locked. Best way to actually grab items in this game, if you go copy while you're holding an item, you have a copy of it, and Control-V, and Control-V, and I'll put that back. You can duplicate and delete items at will, and I recommend if you're playing Tabletop, you'll be having the host delete a lot of things whenever it's convenient, because it's just less things to load. And also, big warning, we discovered this playing Agricola when we did that. It does stack eventually when you hover over the other white space. If you put a stack of free food, which I'm just going to show now, into the food thing, the next thing you draw will be that stack of free food. This can get very confusing if nobody realizes you've done it, so it's easier to just delete and then keep drawing singles from the food pile, which you can copy as needed. You should never run out of things in this because you can just copy them. There are actual upper limits. I know that food bag isn't actually supposed to only have 30. I think it's supposed to have... Sorry, I have the rules here just in case. It's supposed to have 88 actually, but I've taken this from the Agricola one. From the Agricola mod, because it actually stacks. For whatever reason, the person who made the Caverna one didn't want their food to stack, which is silly. I think stone will stack, actually. Will it? No, it won't. This is why I've got to have everything else like that, which is a little awkward. Anyway, so moving now on to player red. I think what player red is going to do at this point is go and get some sustenance. So immediately she gets another food. She'll also get 1 grain. Now, grain you need to farm areas, which is always helpful. And she can now place one of these, which is a field pasture, or field meadow space. It can have a pasture on it, but it can't do yet. And we're going to place that there, on the basis that this tile gets 1 food, and the next one we can connect up and get that boar, if we so wish. You can have a pair of a type of animal in your home without needing any special treatment there. And also, because I've covered up 1 food, I can have, or red can have rather, an extra food. Now, conversions. This is important because in Agricola, you had to basically have ovens and things. In Caverna, you do not. At any time, you can convert the grain, sheep, or donkey, or 2 gold, which are victory points at the end of that game, into 1 food. Rubies, pumpkins, boars, and 3 gold can be converted into 2. 4 gold, 2 donkeys, as a pair of donkeys, or a cattle can be converted into 3 food at any time. It is sometimes very important that it happens, so let me just make sure they're stacked up. Always try and check for the shadows and then watch as it doesn't actually work. I suppose I could make these bigger, which might help them stack, actually. Hold on. Oh, I've drawn the... Okay, where did that one come from? Did I put that into the other food bag? Sorry, it's because I found this is that's from the other food pile. I don't know where that's come from. It might actually... Oh, it's because I had it on there. Alright, my fault. So that also shouldn't be there because that's going to be another one with a similar issue. So 1 food goes there. 1 food then goes onto you. This is why it's important to test and set up before you actually do things like this. So, because the harvest at the end of round 3 will require us to each pay 4 food, technically speaking, red has already got to 4 food. Because you can use the grain. She doesn't want to particularly. Wants to actually use that as, you know, farmland. But for the moment, it means she's basically set up and she can prepare for other things. Green, however, is going straight for blacksmithing. So, we can pay 1 or 2 ore here, but green being green is going to pay 2 ore. And as I say, easiest thing to do with these is just delete them. I know they're single items, but just easier that way. And this means we can now upgrade the dwarf. Any item, you can right-click and rename. I think that's open to everybody by default. And now we have here a level 2 dwarf. Now, I'm going to need the cards, which are actually conveniently located in the 1-player slot. So, as a level 2, she can now go on to an adventure. And you pick up a number of loot equal to the number in that card. The woodcutting here allows you to go on a level 1 adventure. I think something else allows level 2 later, and there is a level 4 somewhere in round 3. But for the moment, you can pick up 3 bits of any loot that you can actually have. So, I think what you're going to do is you're going to go for the after expedition all weapons level up. So she's going to go straight up 1 level, and then effectively be level 4 at the end of this, because you want to get higher level things. We're then going to take 1 sheep and 1 grain. So, we take a sheep, which is now a pet. Also an upside down sheep as well, because, you know, you can always flip it to convert it back if you want to. 1 grain, and then all levels go up by 1. In addition, she gets 1 for going on. You automatically level up whenever you go on expedition. So she now has a level 4 dwarf, which later on is going to be very helpful because that allows for pumpkins. And it is after expedition all the weapons level up. You can't just go, right, I'll have a level and then I'll take a donkey, for example. But for the moment, that's sorted out a few interesting things for green, and that will end the turn there, I think. So, everybody returns now back to their home. That is the end of Season 1. I'm still the starting player, but now I must actually restock the board, which is one of the more awkward things in this. Best way to restock the board is to make sure you do it in sequence and just go round. Now, not all boards actually have the same sort of recovery rate. So that goes 1, 1, 1. The 3/1 in Agricola term, Caverna terms rather, means if there's nothing on it, you get the main number. If there is something on it, you get the brackets. So you get 3 wood there because there's nothing on it. I don't believe there's any more wood to go, or there is more sustenance to go on. So I'm just going to borrow a single food token if I can find one. I can't. So I'm going to take one. Copy, paste. I'm going to put another one on the starting player because that accumulates. So yeah, starting player is really worth nabbing at some point, especially when that builds up. Rubies are, as I've said, very important. You don't want to let those build up too much, and I might actually have to go and grab that. Also, I've not done this in a logical order at all. Or copy to there. That's it, because the rest all gain stone. So, stone, copy, 1 onto there, 1 onto there, and 1 onto there, because that's what's in the brackets. So, I think that's everything restocked, and now we just flip this board, and we see it is sheep farming. So, for a number of wood, you can actually create a pasture, either a 1 pasture space, which I believe is on the reverse of these. A 2 pasture space, which I believe is on the reverse of these. Nope, it's on the reverse of something. There you go. Or you can, and then you can go and make 1 stable for every stone. And stables, I believe, double the amount that you can have in a pasture. But I think stables can actually go by themselves and hold a single animal of any type. Also, I think you can use the stable to actually go and unlock these. I was going to have a quick check of that, but I don't want to spend too long time looking at the rulebook. So we'll assume that's how it goes for the moment, and somebody will tell me if I'm wrong. So, oh, also 1 sheep now goes onto that, because it also has an arrow on it. Where's the sheep? There we go. Sheep breed during the harvest phase as well as any other animal you've got. Also, we're going to lock the cards here because that's convenient for us, and I'm just going to place you down with the right mouse button, and there we go. So, I'm still starting player in white, so I get the first move. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to think about how I'm going to actually progress a little more here, because I still need 1 food. I've got a lot of my mines excavated, but I don't actually have any resources, and what I want to do is grab a dwelling of some kind. So I will need 4 wood. and one more stone. In an ideal world, that would help. I also do need, however, to sort out some food requirements for later. So it might be worth me actually going and doing a bit of farming here, or picking up those 2 rubies, because that gives me a few wild card options, and I can then make some preparations to try and get to dwellings depending on what I'm missing later. In fact, actually, no, that works out for me. So I'm going to go straight for the rubies. So I now have 2 of these, and I can convert those at any time for various things, including 2 food each if I absolutely need them. I can also immediately go and place down single tiles of farmland, pasture, or whatever else I feel like. So I'm not too unhappy with that turn of events. Moving on to player red. Now, similar thing for red in a lot of ways. We do want to actually... We do want to consider dwellings, but I think there's other things we can do here. We can go and grab additional wood and get an extra tile, or we can actually go slash and burn and plant the grain that we've got there. It would also allow us to get the boar as well, which is always a beneficial consideration. Or we could go and get... We want to go slash and burn. Also, we've got to consider nobody else has any fields yet, so I think we've got some time to wait on this. So what I'm going to do with red is go forest exploration. So immediately we pick up one of both of those, and we get a pumpkin, which is a bonus, not a accumulating thing, because it's not in the arrow. So when I find the pumpkins, cattle, boar, sheep, dog, wood, vegetable. So I now have 2 things that I can go slash and burn. It's fairly obvious that red wants slash and burn, but I don't think anybody else is going to take that unless they are feeling especially mean. Is green feeling especially mean? Now, green has to play a level 0 dwarf before she plays a level 4 dwarf. In addition, she probably wants to try and take the beneficial stance of things and use her level 4 dwarf for expedition purposes. The downside is logging is likely to be taken by them. So, what to do to try and prioritize? She's got food sorted out. I think, even though I kind of suggested the evil plan, I think the evil plan is actually the plan here, because that allows us to immediately plant the grain. So, level 0 dwarf is going to slash and burn. So, we're immediately going to place that like this. Do I want to go up for that one? No, I want to... We want that food. Food is important, and that means we now have 2 food. I thought I had more than that. Stack, please. Doesn't matter. So, we immediately get 1 food because we grab the fish from the river. We can then immediately sow. Now, when you sow, you can sow up to 2 fields. That's an important change from Agricola. You can't sow everything. And when you sow in this game, you immediately place 2 additional ones from a stack on top. These come off during the harvest phase. So we now have a wheat field in green, and that's probably not a bad plan, actually, for what she's done there. So she has now some food coming back to her. Overall, that's not bad. At this point, red is probably going done. But this is the advantage of starting player. Speaking of, I would like to nab starting player here, but I know if I do, things are going to cause... I'm going to have some problems. So I'm going to go straight for logging, because I need some wood, and that means I'm now at the point where I could build a dwelling, which I will need if I want to get a family growth, which always happens on round 4. And that puts me 1 away from being able to build a dwelling. Also, I'll just point out, I am using the introductory game here. The main game has double the numbers, and mostly it's for loading issues, which is why I'm only using the basic one. So, there are simple dwellings, and they are 1 of each, and they don't cost as many, but they don't earn any victory points either. We'd like to go up to the proper dwellings, because they actually are worth 3 victory points at the end of the game. And victory points are important. But with the 2 rubies that White now has, we actually do have enough to build that. Or do whatever else we feel like. Meanwhile... Grrr. It's a setback. It is a setback. But it's not a critical setback in a lot of ways, because what I can do now is I can wait until Slash and Burn becomes available and get it then. I would like to build a long pasture, but we can't do that either. So, in consideration for later in the game, and when it's going to be important, we're going to have immediately Red take the starting player. So, Red picks up 2 food, giving her a total of 5. She's now well sorted out on the food front in a lot of ways. And she grabs 2 ore, which I'm going to copy in and just put that back. Now, because she's now starting player, she now picks this up, and she will begin round 3, giving her control over what she can do, and she can definitely get a field next turn. All important. Now we go to the level 4 dwarf. Now, the level 4 dwarf hasn't really been blocked a lot. You can still go to blacksmithing, and it's probably one of the better things to do at this stage, because it allowed her to get more stuff. Allowed her to prepare for other things. So, yeah, level 4 dwarf is going to go blacksmithing. So, let's see what we can get for a level 4 dwarf this time. We do have a sheep. We could get a breeding pair of them and hope to get a pasture next turn. We could grab a pumpkin. We can only grab each resource once, so we have to pick up 3 different things here. So pumpkin, sheep, and I think we want to actually consider other things here because we need a dwelling as well at some stage. So I think the pumpkin is a fine thing, so we're going to take a pumpkin here. That's one. We're then going to take a stone. And I'm looking at leveling up here because that would allow me to get to level 6. Actually, I can get 2 ore as well, actually. And that might actually be better because that allows me to then have 2... Yeah, we're going to go ore. So that's what I grabbed there. The reason I grabbed 2 ore is because I can then level up, I can then basically turn my level 0 dwarf into another warrior and go on adventures with them as well. We would like some more of it, but we can always go ore mining, let that build up, and then see how things go from there. Okay, so that is end of 2. So everybody grabs their people back. Level 0, level 0. I've got to keep these separate if I remember to do that. Oh, also, because we went on an adventure, you now level up to level 5. Got to remember to do that. There are tokens you would normally put on things, but I found that a bit fiddly, which is why I'm using the naming convention for this. So, we grab our level 0 dwarf and our level 0 dwarf. And then we restock for round 3. So first off, flip round 3, which is ore mine construction. So immediately you get to place an ore mine down over 2 tunnels. You'll notice those are the tunnel spaces, and that's why I've placed here. You then get 3, and then you can go on a level 2 adventure. So, there are definite advantages to doing that. Just thinking about things here, Yeah, I need to actually restock. So, that gets 1, that gets 1, that gets 1, that gets 3. Food, that gets 1, that gets 1. We then need some stone. That gets 1, that gets 1, and that gets an extra stone as well, actually. So there's a lot of stone building up at this point. 1 additional ore appears there. And I think that's all the accumulated spaces, unless I've missed something. No, 1 food. Oh, 2 food, rather. That should be 2 food. And 1 ruby. Okay. Now, after this stage, we must be aware there's a harvest coming. So we will need 2 food for every dwarf we have. Red has already fixed that problem. And I think what Red is going to do this turn is consider... In fact, no, we're not going to consider. We're going to slash and burn. So immediately we can place a second field down here. This gets us 1 boar. So, wild boar is now a pet, because we can hold 2 pets in there without need of pasture. And in addition, we get to farm both of these. So, that goes there, that goes there. Unlike Agricola, these do not have to be connected. Nothing has to be connected out here. It's just what we decided to build today. So there we go. So we now have a stack of vegetables building. And that is a fairly good farming engine already sorted out for Red before we get too much further into this. So, again, level 0 dwarf must go first, and level 0 dwarf has an option here. We could use those 2 ore to get another warrior sorted out. Or we could go... No, actually, we need to wait on ore mining construction because we need actually to get some territory out. So I'm thinking that's actually a better idea now. We're gonna wait on it, but we're going to try and build ourselves a mine. How are we doing for food, actually? Free food. So we do have enough, and we have to play level 0 first. So we're going to take the excavation phase at this point. 2 stone, which gives us 3 total, means we need 4 wood. Or 3 wood would allow us to build the basic one, which is what we'll do if we need it. But actually, one thing we should consider before I did... it doesn't matter, I've started now. Starting player is going to be vitally important next turn for anybody who's actually got the ability to build a dwelling, which is the second highest priority at this point, and none of us are really building towards it. Though, in theory, I have the option to, in white. But anyway, that's done now, and we can now place one of these. And I think we're also going to consider that we're going to need some more ore. So I'm going to build the same way I did last time. We're going to build an extra tunnel there, and we're going to prepare for another iron mine there. So, white. Both of mine are level 0, so I don't have to worry about ordering. I've got a few options here in a lot of ways. I need one more food. But what I actually want to do, and what I'm going to do, is go ore mining construction. So first off, I get free ore. Which I'm going to do that and put that away. I can then go on an adventure, but I don't actually... This is level 0 dwarf, he doesn't have a weapon, he can't do that. I then get to place 1 ore mine down on top of here. That is worth 3 points. I'm going to lock that board as well. Also, be careful with locking because you'll occasionally flip things over, which is why I'm being now especially careful. And there we go. So I now have 3 victory points for that, and I have an ore mine. Ore mine means that ore mining is actually much more valuable for me now, and it means I get an extra 2 there. So that's worth 5 if I decide to go there next turn, which would give me ability to jump to a level 8 weapon, which is a definite consideration for a backup plan in a lot of ways. I think though the dwelling is going to be vital, so what I might end up doing is using both my rubies my next turn and just build the main dwelling. But for the moment, it's not my turn; it's Red's turn. So Red has a lot of wood, but does need other things. So what can I do on an adventuring front here? Can I get from? It would have to be a level 2. So I don't think you can necessarily get everything you need though. Stone's level 3, so you can't get that just yet. You could, however, though, grab yourself extra wheat, which is food consideration. You can't grab an extra boar or anything like that. You can grab a dog, actually. Dogs are surprisingly useful. The alternative, though, is to actually go sheep farming at this stage. You can then build a pasture and have... Oh, actually, that's one thing that should have... Yeah, there should be 2 of those there. So we'd have a breeding pair of sheep for this round, and also, we don't have a stone, so we can't do anything there. We have the food to worry about, so I'm actually... Yeah, we're going to continue our food engine. We're going to go sheep farming. And what we're going to do as part of sheep farming is give up 4 of these. And again, easiest way to get rid of these is to just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Though I'd recommend making sure... Actually, no, since the GM is the only person, the host is the only person who can do that normally, and that's fine. So, flip side of this is a 4 victory point pasture, which can hold 4 of a type of animal, I believe. I will check that in a moment. Oop. Also, lock that tile. Right-click to put things down, so that you can actually, position them. So, huzzah, we have some sheep. In fact, this is looking fairly good for Red in terms of actually developing things. You just unfortunately need to get more dwelling things, and that's kind of put her a long way back on that. But she does have the food engine sorted out, which means she can afford to have more people coming in at later stages. That might not have been the best move, but it means she's got a lot of things set up. So Green's second move, and Green is quite happy because the blacksmithing has been left yet again. Does blacksmithing actually help though? Because it might be better off going to logging taking just the one and being on the point where we can go for a simple dwelling. We know that red isn't likely to be able to get one next turn. We know that white could actually be building one this turn. So it's a debate here, because green is going to have the option before red, because neither of us can really is likely to take the starting player this turn, because we need to go and grab that immediately, which I'm going to actually lock in place, which I should have done with that as well. Oh, lots of decision making to go. I think we're going to go on a level 1 adventure, take the wood, and then we can take any item up to level 5, which is a boar. Or we can take another sheep, giving us a breeding pair, but nowhere to put it. I think the best thing we can do with 5 at the moment is probably take 2 more ore. Or we are down on food. So I could take wood, stone, and take a pumpkin. And the pumpkin gives us a second one there. We can convert one of the grains we're about to get into food, but that would give us additional... Yeah, okay, I think that's probably the best way we can do this at the moment. So 1 stone, 1 wood. Actually, what do we need for this? We need 1 more wood, definitely. So the wood we'll take. That's 1. Could take a second sheep for backup purposes, but we don't actually have any way of holding them for the moment. Once we get to 7, we can start furnishing caverns off of expeditions, which is always nice. So I think what we might do here is go for all weapons plus 1. That puts us to 7 for next turn. And, yeah, pumpkin. Pumpkin is definitely the way to go for the last one. So, some veggies. And all weapons plus 1. Oh, no, hold on. No, what am I thinking? Right, sorry. I was trying to cheat there, because I only get 1 of these options. So, because I only get 1 of these options, and I know the grain's going to sort that out there, we're going to take the wood we need to make sure we can get a dwelling. So wood is definitely the best option. You now level up. That puts you up to level 6. And now it's white's turn. Now white is immediately going to cash in the rubies. And we can cash in the rubies for a lot of things. But we're going to cash in the rubies for 1 wood and 1 stone. Oh, hold on. Hold on. I've got to think about that, actually. Is that the best way to play this? Because I actually am low on food. Darn, I should have thought about this. I've got 2 rubies still. So if I'm willing to take a lesser dwelling, a simple dwelling, I'll be down on points, but it would then allow me to do something else with the other one to make sure I've got enough food. I can't convert the dog into food, unfortunately, but I suppose I could go on an adventure and get the food that way. I'd be level 3 to start with, so that would allow me to go donkey, sheep, and things. I could go sustenance, which would actually sort a lot of my food problems out and allow me to basically get things there. I could go for drift mining. That gets me a lot of stone, but not the wood I need. Actually, we could go clear cutting. That would actually work. So that gives me 3 wood, gives me 6 in total there. Gets me the space I want there. No matter how many times I look, it's only going to be free food. I need 4. Otherwise I have to take a begging card, and I don't want to do that. So use that for a pumpkin. Gives us enough to definitely have enough. I could even use it for 2 pumpkins if I wanted to, just to make sure I've got enough, and I'd still have a pumpkin at the end of the day. But But then I don't have enough to I don't have enough to furnish. Okay. What I'm going to do for my last turn then is I'm going to go onto the supply space, but I'm seeing what I can actually do in addition to that. Or do I just hold on to things? I think I hold on to things in any case. So we're going to get supplies. Supplies is the general, all-purpose, grab a lot of stuff space. So I get +1 wood. I get +1 stone. I get another ore, which means I've got 4 ready for a weapon if it comes up. I then gain 1 food, which gives me the 4 I need to stay in the game next turn without starving. And I get 2 gold. 2 gold is 2 victory points and can be traded, as you can see here, for a food. So now we're at the end of round 3, and this means we now go through the harvest phase. So, let me actually just open up the rules to make sure I'm doing this in the right order, because this is important. I better not have messed any of my people up, which would have been awkward. So, bear with. Actually, harvest time is already in my cart, yeah. What am I doing? Harvest is actually here. Right, so, first part of the harvest phase is the field phase. Anybody who has a field gets immediately 1 off of both of those. So huzzah, we have additional food that we can use. In addition, you have additional food that you can use if you want to. Right, next up, we must feed. So it's 2 food per dwarf. Since I have 2 dwarfs, I go 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 food, delete. In your case, you remove 1, 4 food, delete, and you're fed. Then over here, 3 food +1 grain, which we're immediately converting into food, as per the thing there upside down. So 1 grain goes away, 3 food goes away. We're all fed at this stage. Huzzah! So that wasn't so bad, was it? It's going to get worse. Food is always a concern. Finally, breeding phase. So 2 sheep becomes 3 sheep. And I don't think anybody else has a breeding pair of animals at this stage of the game. Nope. Everything returns, and we are done with the first season of Caverna. And god, the mental stress is starting. It does that in this game sometimes. Alright, level 6 dwarf, a level 0 dwarf. This tile is now available and ready. So we can either furnish a dwelling, and note that's a dwelling that's got to go on there, so the only thing we can do with that is grab one of the dwelling cards. This allows you to use any of the spaces for their appropriate amount, and some of them do have various effects, which I've not really had a lot of look at. But things like the blacksmith allows you to get discounts on things. This allows you to get additional supplies. There are plenty of useful, beneficial ones to have. So, I'm going to grab an extra ruby. We're going to grab an extra food. We're going to grab an extra stone for each of those. There's a lot of nice stuff in strip mining, actually. That's going to have to go soon. That's getting a bit valuable. I'm going to quickly borrow that. 1, 1, 1. 1 extra food. And 1 extra ore. Plus 1 sheep. Okay. So, Red is still the starting player at this point of the game. And has really nothing in terms of resources to allow her to get additional farmers or people. But other than that, is actually doing reasonably well at this stage. So we have farm set up. We have potential options here. I think the best way we're going to be able to continue on here, though, is to try and grab as many resources as possible. And the easy way to do that is to go up here. So, 1 ore, which puts her onto 3. 3 stone. And 2 additional wood. And that conveniently allows her to have enough for a dwelling. It does not, however, allow her to go straight into the Wish for Children, which feels suboptimal play at this stage of the game, in all honesty. So, the level 0 dwarf. The level 0 dwarf is going to immediately go here. And this is a blocking move in a lot of ways. Because while neither of us are ready, it means nobody can do it this turn if he wants to go and do something else with a level 6 dwarf. And he's a he again now rather than she. Huzzah, I'm doing well here. So immediately we're going to furnish a dwelling. And we're going to furnish with 1, 2, 3. I think we have 3. We do. We have enough to buy a proper dwelling. One other thing to be aware of this turn is that there isn't exactly a harvest this turn. And that can go in any of the cavern spaces. But we do have to pay 1 food for every dwarf we have. So everybody's going to need to pay 2 food. Because, of course, there's going to be no additional people anymore. So, now it's White's turn. And White's a little annoyed at that, but not a lot I can do this turn. He's going to pick up a lot of ore. Now, we want to go blacksmithing next turn, which is a fairly obvious play in a lot of ways. But that gives us 8 ore. In fact, that gives us 2 additional ore because we have an ore mine. And every time we go ore mining, we pick one up. So that gives us 10 ore. Other things to consider we can spend with ore is the working cave, which allows us to feed a dwarf with exactly 1 or 2. We could also go for something like ore storage, which gives a victory point for every 2 ore we have, which is a potential thing. 3 for every weapon. And the blacksmith allows us to build weapons at a discount. A lot of things happening at this point. And a lot of resources available, actually. It's a bit scary how many there are at this point, actually. So, wrapping it back around, we now have you. Now, both the dwelling spaces, the cabin space is still available, but we'd have to go settle for a simple dwelling if we did that. In all honesty, though, I think what we're going to do here is secure our food supply issue here. So, we're going to go and take 2 food. In fact, that's 3 food there. Yeah, it's free food there now. Oh, I hadn't realised that. Okay. So that massively sorts out her food supplies. I'm just going to stack that up neatly. So she's back up to 5 food again. And she can now place another field down. So we're going to place this field here, with the indication being that we're going to go up to grab the other boar at some stage. And basically sort out our farming issues there. I think that's also kind of overhanging, but we'll live with that, I feel. So, we're pretty much sorted on this side of things. Green, then, for a second action with the work here. Can see that I've got a lot of ore. A lot of ore. But, is that necessarily what we want to do here? Because there are other things we could definitely do. See, there's plenty of beneficial things here, and we do want to grab an extra... The rubies are tempting here, and that gives green a lot of options if we go for rubies. But it's whether we want to block the blacksmithing space. What do we get for a level 6 adventure, actually? We get... We're going to actually hold these out here, because it's going to be easier for me to manage, but normally they'll be in your hands. So level 6 adventure means we can go up for 2 money, or 2 victory points. We can go to boars, which we already... we have a sheep, actually. Allows us next turn to furnish caverns using adventures. Basically, the justification for that is that they actually go out on quests and bring back furniture. I think, looking at a lot of the board's situation here... If we do not take those 2 rubies, there's going to be 3 for the starting player. Actually, we need 2 food. Ah, that's a fair point. We need 2 food. And there's no... Actually, we could go and eventually get food. So yeah, that's doubly beneficial here. We block that space off, and also we can sort out the food issues. So in order to sort out the food issues, we're going to take 1... thinking about this actually a little. I think the pumpkin is the easiest way to just get this. So we now have that, which can just convert to 2 food. We can also take 2 money, which we can convert for food if we want to later. And I think we're going to take... Because the reason I'm thinking here is I'm thinking being evil to white a bit here and getting another weapon on my other dwarf. So this would allow me to basically go there, put a level 4 weapon on, and block the level 8 weapon, which I've clearly got ready here. Alternatively, what we could do, and probably should do, is go something like drift mining, pick up a bucket load of stone, and set up for another ore mine, which would then give us level 2 adventure as well with the second dwarf. In the meantime, though, I do level up to level 7. Actually, do we want 2 money? Hold on. No, we'll take 2 money. Two victory points is 2 victory points. We're going to not be unhappy if we have 2. And also, if we can get a little more than that, we can actually convert that into a lot of food. So 2 is fine. Right, white then for the last turn. So we are blocked, annoyingly. We'll live. Not much I can really do about that, in all honesty. I, however, do need 2 food. So I could actually go and nab starting player back, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to do. The other thing I could potentially do is consider building a dwelling at this point, because I've got the ruby, so I can convert that for a pumpkin, and that sorts out my food issues. And in fact, I'm going to do that now. Ruby goes back there. We now have a pumpkin, which is my food sorted out. We would also get a dog. Dogs do not count as pets. They can go anywhere they want. They're worth a victory point each at the end of the game. And we get to furnish a cavern as well, which gets us our dwelling. Alternatively, we could take starting player, but we still need to do the dwelling anyway. So, yeah, we're going to go furnish a cavern and a dog. So we shall take a dog. The dog will calmly just sit at the entrance and just guard it, because he's good like that. Next, we're going to spend all of our stone, which again, just easiest to delete those. And 4, and that gets us a dwelling here. More victory points. And room for another dwarf. Is there anything else I want to do with the other ruby, actually? Not particularly, I don't think. We could take a second one, I suppose, but there's not a lot of benefit to doing that at this stage of the game. So, there we go. Right, so end of this round. Each dwarf must pay 1 food per dwarf. You'll also notice there's a harvest coming next round as well. So, suddenly, things are going to get a bit hectic. This isn't technically a harvest, though. It's just pay one food per dwarf. So, immediately, green is going to convert a pumpkin into 2, which is fine. You are actually going to pay 2 food. Annoyingly, you're the only person who can actually afford to have... Oh, don't do that. Delete. Always delete. And I'm going to delete my pumpkin as well. So that's done there. Everybody returns home. I'm probably going to call it a video after the next one. And if people have enjoyed this introduction, I might go on and continue this game, actually. But for the moment, this is how a free-player game of Caverna generally goes. So we have a level 7, and we have a level 0. This flips. So we now have ruby mining construction. Now, ruby mining is a bit... you can actually place a ruby mine on any tunnel space, or you can place it on the ore mine space, and you immediately get a ruby when you do that. So that's actually reasonably high priority for me at this point, if it weren't for the fact that I probably do want another child. Though somebody else could easily beat me to that, and it's being able to feed this child that's the problem. Yeah, well, still, red is still starting player at this point, and actually has enough food to survive the harvest already before we start. So I think red is finally oh, I've got to copy things. There is a lot of wood in places now. 1 additional food there, because 1 additional wood there because nobody took it. Food, copy. Starting player now is free. Sustenance is 1. Goes back there. 1 ore now appears on strip mining. Oh, that's food. Be careful with what you're copying. Copy. 1 stone, 1 stone. 1 additional sheep. And I think that's... Oh, 1 additional ruby. So there are now 3 rubies on there. That is a very valuable space to grab. And in fact, because it's so ridiculously valuable, I think red might be going for it here, because that then allows us to go and furnish a cavern as well. And we could accelerate things. It's get the cavern done next turn, and if nobody takes it, which... The other side of the coin is, red is the only player in a really good position to go and actually have a third family member. So, in preparation for that, red is going to go and furnish a cavern. She doesn't want to block off the dwelling space, because that would be silly. She does, however, have to take the lower grade of simple dwelling here. There's only one of these. It's simple, but it's a farmer's life for this dwarf. So, green has to prioritise a little here. We could block the blacksmithing space. In fact, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go straight for blacksmithing. We're going to spend 4 of the ore. Right click should be picking that up, but I have to be careful about what I'm highlighting. Ore can actually get back in the bag. Ore's fine. Yeah, I should really be deleting that. So immediately, this now becomes a level 4 dwarf. So, this level 4 dwarf now has to go and feed the family. So, we're going to take an extra pumpkin. We are going to take... And all weapons up by 1 level at the end. So that will give us a level 8 dwarf over there, which allows us to get into putting down our things here, which are stables. That's the word for them. So 1 level up, 1 pumpkin, and I think we're going to take 1 grain as well here, just to be on the safe side. We could take a breeding pair of sheep. Except we've got nowhere for the second sheep to go, which is the only downside. If we had a dog, then we can actually get around that issue a little. Because dogs allow you can place dogs in empty meadow spaces, and they can hold 1 more sheep than there are dogs there. So if I had a spare meadow here, I could hold 2 sheep in this one. But I don't, so I can't, and neither do you. So there's 1 pumpkin for definite. Yeah, I think we're going to go for... Yeah, we've got dog sheep. So that dog is going to sit there. And then we're going to have a pair of sheep in this meadow. Because our dog is a valiant sheepdog. And he's doing a quite good job of it. So he's keeping those upside down sheep in line. Or, you know, in a heap over there. And that means you have space for a breeding sheep. So that's an extra food available that way. And he's got the minimum food he requires if he decides to get rid of his pumpkins. Bit of an extreme measure, but he could do it. So over to White. White is the first player who's got the opportunity to go and add a dwelling. This, however, would be a severe problem if I did this, because I would then need to pay 5 food. I have a ruby. That gives me a pumpkin. That's 2 food. I have 2 money, which gives me another food. But I only have 3. There are a lot of food tiles, though, available, including starting player, which is looking good. If I can't find anything else I would want. I think, though, with the way the game is going, I'm going to go and grab the ruby mine at this point, because that immediately gets me an extra ruby. And if nobody takes the rubies this time, I actually get additional rubies. So, 1 ruby mine. And that goes there. Immediately, because I put it on there, I gain 1 ruby. So I'm just going to copy the one I've already got, because I can, and it's easier. So that's 2 pumpkins, 4 food. I have, if required, the food's requirements sorted out. Again, I glare at green for not allowing me to go onto here. Go. Yeah, I went dog sheep. I didn't go for the weapon upgrades in the end. Right, red. So red now could, and is going to, in fact, go and deal with that. Just going to check a couple of things off here, because we do need to make sure we do definitely have enough. So that's 4. We'll have another wheat coming off. So yeah, that's actually all fine. So we're going to go and immediately go family growth. Which means I can put another red token here. Another level 0 dwarf. And red is looking quite good. Meanwhile, green, seeing what's coming up and seeing that there is a lot of food now on starting player, is going to go and grab starting player. Now, while she'd want to use his adventuring things here... Actually, does he want... yes, he does. Because that gives him more... No, actually, hold on. Sorry. There's some critical things here. It's right for red to want to go and do that. What green wants to do at this point is, again, block white. Because green doesn't like me for whatever reason. So we're going to pick up 3 rubies. These are going to be very important for later in any case. And in fact, I think we're going to be spending some of those. I think you can spend rubies at any time during your turn. Let me check that. Because if you can, he's going to do something now. Rubies. Rubies are used in a variety of ways. Wildcard. Exchange them at any time for a 1-to-1 ratio. And it does say at any time. So... we could... put down another thing there for an ore mine, which might be helpful. Just trying to work out what would be better here. Because while we do have the pumpkins, I'd prefer to keep one. So I'm going to trade 1 ruby in for a 3rd pumpkin. And I think what we might end up doing is basically creating another field space just so we can sort of start some pumpkin farming on this side of the board. Unless, though, it might not be overly worth it, though. So I can just sort of stick with this. Oh, by the way, you went up to level 5. Got to remember that happens. Because I will forget. So, multiple pumpkins, all good, all sorted. So, on to White's turn. White has a few options, but does need a lot of food. And the best food space available is probably sustenance or the starting player. And in fact, starting player is worth so much food at this point in the game that I think we're going to try and become the starting player again. In fact, we're not going to try to become the starting player. We're going to succeed in being the starting player again. This gets us free food. We grab the starting player back. We then immediately gain 2 ore. And I'm going to drop that in. So I now have 12 ore hiding around here, but I will get blacksmithing next turn. It will happen. Which is the other reason for doing that. I mean, this is the thing with Agricola, it's all about family. With Caverna, it's all about just making sure you can feed that family, which I think is a nicer twist on it. Red has got to spend more food, but actually has the food engine sorted out this time. So, that ends that turn then. And immediately we now have a harvest. So, begin field phase. So, pumpkin comes off. We'll be hoping to do another slash and burn later. So those come off. Another wheat comes off over here. We then go and pay 2 food for a family member. I have 3 food, but I'm going to spend this on a pumpkin, which I'm going to convert immediately for 2 food based on the thing down here. Actually, I could just convert the ruby for 2 food. I suppose same difference. Same difference, and then that 2 food goes away. I'm going to delete that. Leaves me 1 food left over and some rubies. So, we're going to spend here both of our wheat. Actually, do I want to do it that way? No, I don't want to do it that way. I want to get rid of a pumpkin at this point, I think. No, because that gives me 2 pumpkins, and pumpkins are worth more. So yeah, we are going to get rid of 2 wheat and 3 food, because the baby is only born this turn, and it only requires 1 food in the harvest. Then over here, we need to have 4 food, so we are going to sacrifice 2 pumpkins. Breeding phase. 1 sheep is now a pet. We have a lamb. We have a lamb for pettage. And I will check this because I'm sure I might have this wrong. Is there an easy way? You might have to wait for a cavern to actually double that, but I will just make sure I've got the pasture zones correct. But we'll go much further with this. Build fences. Each pasture can hold up to 2 farm animals of the same type. A large pasture can hold 4. So 4 is the upper limit on the number of sheep. But still, that's all sorted, and we can convert those to food later if we so wish. Right. all things done. Let's go and prepare for the final. This is the final one I'm going to do this video, as I've already mentioned. So we're just going to get to the halfway point of the game, and then we shall see how well the video comes out, more than anything else, in all honesty. So we have a level 5 and a level 7 dwarf over here. So we've got the weaponized dwarves on this side of the board. Oh, with their sheep. Don't kick the sheep. We don't approve of animal cruelty here. So, restocking. We need an extra ruby. We need some food. Yep. Make sure I'm copying the right things. And also, don't do that. Right. Extra food. I think that's all the food space is done. This now starts building up stone again. There's a lot of stone on drift mining. Somebody's going to have to do that next turn or two, because it's just becoming a bit ridiculous. One additional log comes here. This is the other thing that's getting a bit ridiculous. There is a lot of wood around. One additional sheep. We then flip this token and we see donkey farming. Donkeys are slightly more valuable than sheep in terms of food allowances, and also donkeys can go into mines. If you have a mine, you can hold a donkey in said mine, and I've also messed that up slightly. This is why you lock tiles. You can also rotate with a mouse wheel if you're holding an item, which I may have mentioned before, as well as flipping. So we're going to lock that in place, and we have one upside down donkey. I think that's all the spaces used up. Oh, two ore need to go back on here, because somebody picked up ore mining. Actually, I'm not sure I did that from previously, but it doesn't matter. That's how the game is for the moment, so that's how the game is. So, as Whitey's starting player, the first thing we have to do actually before that is this little system. Now, there are 3 red tiles and 4 harvest tiles in the remaining 7 here. The red tiles basically go on top here and you do whatever they say. But now, we have a harvest. You only flip these at the end, so there's no point in revealing before then. So, at the end of this, we're going to have to feed our dwarves, which means red will need 6 and we will need 4 unless we go and add an extra dwarf, which is what I'm debating here. But I think, in all honesty, finally it's been given up. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to have a level 8 dwarf. So, level 8 dwarf allows me to do a number of things. But I think the most important thing that we are going to do is we are going to take... We can only take each item once, which is the downer. We're going to take a pumpkin, which I'm going to copy from you. So that's 2 food. That gives us 3. I could also take a boar, which is also 2 food. Yeah, food requirements, something I'm going to be considering a little here. So that's giving us 4. We have the food if it comes to it. And then... for our final action, I think... what are the benefits to going to level 10? Level 10 allows us to have pastures for half cost, and also allows us to start having cattle. We can also actually start digging tunnels in our mines, which is always help. So vegetables at higher levels. You see, this is the advantage of going to the really high levels, and it's something that white's got over green, even though green has more ability to do this. Yeah, so I think I'm going to take a level up as well. So this dwarf is now going to go up to level 10. So 1 level up for the expedition and 1 level up from all weapons leveling up. So we are sorted on food if we use the ruby. And we have a wild boar as well, which we can try and put into a pasture a little later. Right. The first of the red actions. And I think the first of the red actions is we are going to take the clearing, which gives us 6 wood. If stone drift mining is not taken, that's going to be taken next, and then we're going to furnish and go for an upgrade of some kind. Although we don't actually have any room, so we will need to excavate, but we will be able to if we get one of the drift mining spaces. So yeah, that's the plan there. We're just now going, yeah, you've allowed me to do this. This is all your fault. And also, we get another one of these. And this time, we're going to go up here, and we're going to now have a pair of boars, which I'm just going to copy in because we can. And so we're doing quite a good job at this, actually. Pasture already sorted out. Multiple places for farming available. All going really well on the red side of things. So, the level 5 dwarf must go first. And annoyingly now, there is an opponent to any attempt at building things. And I think for similar reasons here, we're going to go drift mining. We're going to go and grab some... Oh, actually, no, we don't want to necessarily go drift mining here. We need food. You need food as well, actually, in a lot of ways, but you've actually got ways of dealing with that. And you have multiple sheep you can sacrifice if required. Yes, I think slash and burn is probably an option that Red's going to take at one point, just to try and up the ante a little. Green, however, has to get some food this turn, really. There's one food there. There's some sustenance food available. There's a pumpkin and a lot of wood, which would give enough. I mean, in reality, we only need one additional food, so I could go adventuring. Yeah, we're gonna gamble on there being an adventuring tile left. In fact, there should be. The only other warrior's already been picked, so we're going to pick up a load of stone at this stage. And also, get ourselves a second tunnel network. We're going to build it the same way, and this gets us food as well, in all honesty, because, you know, we now found an underground lake with some fish. 2 food. So yeah, that move sorts a lot of our food problems out. We are sorted, and we can now build up towards other things. And over here then, so... having a level 10 dwarf is a big help, but what else can I do? I think what I'm going to do this turn is I'm going to slash and burn. I said I was going to be a little mean in this because I know he's got 2 pumpkins and she doesn't have any other food at this point. So by going slash and burn, I do 2 things. Firstly, I get to place that in place here. And again, generally speaking, I don't see a lot of need to go the other way around with that. This also allows me the possibility of doing some sheep farming. I get 1 food, because I covered up a stream and did a little fishing while we were at it. And next, we're going to place our pumpkin. Huzzah for farming and all of its glory. So we now have a second pumpkin that goes there, and I'll pick it off at the start of the turn. Ruby mining was another option, actually, in all fairness. I could have done that, but I decided to leave it, even though we get an extra one. We're now in a sort of situation where we can start building things up here. We want to go for cattle. We want to get a cattle farm sorted out. That's our mid-term priority with this. If we can get a cattle farm sorted out, get some food going there, everything should be dandy. Meanwhile, Red has lost the ability to get all of her fields planted this turn, which is annoying. It is annoying, but we have other options available for us here. And said other option is going to be going here and picking up free stone. Now, one thing you might do with Red actually is go donkey farming a little bit. For the moment, we can now have one of either of the tiles. And because we're not too interested in doing mining, we're going to put a double cavern up there, and we're going to cover that space because we want the food right now, just to cover any possible eventualities of running out. So that's done. Green's second action here. And this is a level 7 dwarf now, and level 7 dwarves have the ability to furnish caverns, which means we now have the option of putting an upgrade in place. We prefer, obviously, to go and put other things in, but yeah, this is the way we do this. Level 7 dwarf goes and does ore mine construction. So first off, we get to place an ore mine, which will go that way round. And we're going to lock those tiles in place because I really haven't been doing that, and I really should. Things go wrong if you don't lock things. Okay. That immediately earns free ore. Next, I can go on a 2-step adventure at level 7. So, now we're going to see what we can build with a lot of stone. So, with a lot of stone and 1, we can go blacksmith, but that doesn't give us a lot of benefit right now. 2 wood would allow us to go and do that and go ruby supplier. That might actually be relevant. In fact, that could be very relevant, actually. I'm going to have a quick look at what else I've got available. 2 wheat for free... 2 wheat, free money, or for food. I think, actually, then, the best way to go is ruby supplier here, because that gives us a lot of options. So, first thing, before we decide on that action, we're going to spend 1 ruby and convert that for a wood. The first of the 7, we're going to spend on another wood. That gives 2. Next, we're going to decorate a... where is it? Furnish a cavern, which is the level 7 effect. And we're going to spend 2 stone and 2 wood. Backspace, backspace. It's always worth doing that if you're not sure what's just happened, because it's always worth checking. So yeah, 2 wood. Yeah, it is 2 stone. For some reason I thought that was 3 there. That's why I had a quick check. And 2 stone. And now we can put the ruby supplier in play. So at each of the beginning of the next 4 rounds, and I'm going to put this on... Generally speaking in this game, you put the markers in place, so you know somebody's got to get it. There, and there. That gives a lot of potential benefits. Food is basically sorted out anyway, but having a lot of rubies guaranteed to come in is a lot of nice resources that green's going to have. In fact, green's probably, I think red's still the strongest position here, but green has definitely closed the gap with that move. So, all things being done, all things being equal and happening. I will actually just check there was a cavern. Yes, it was. All things done and equal. That is you done. That now goes up to a level 8 dwarf, which opens up the ability to build stables. And now it is... White doesn't have a piece left, but red does. So red might be looking at another dog here. But red doesn't have any dogs at all, actually. I've got a room for something. That's because I was looking at things over here as well, actually. So... being able to convert wheat and pumpkin to 5 food is nice. Is a nice potential ability. Each farm animal you convert him is an extra food. Could be very useful later. We have 2 boars after all. But I think looking at things, we are going to go... We are going to go... You see, what I was planning on doing here was going donkey farming. Picking up the extra... Actually, we could go sheep farming again. Because what I want to do is I want to get the slaughtering cave. Which actually is worth it now in a lot of ways. So, yeah, we can wait until things build up. In the meantime, we're going to go for a... I've got to, no, I've got to consider this carefully here. Because I still need 6 food. Currently have 5. And it'd be really silly of us to have to sacrifice a lot of animals here. So that's 3 food if I go there. Plus I get to put the extra pasture in place. Plus I can use the stone to put stables in both of them. Meaning they can then hold 8 each. It's wanting to do too much here. This always kind of happens. I can take the free food, get an extra... The thing is, that's getting a bit wasteful. You do suffer a negative point for every space you're missing, but I don't urgently need to do that just yet. On the basis that nobody is looking like getting any sort of pasture ground, I'm going to actually go with the furnishing action here. So we pick up 1 dog. You can guard here for the moment. Next up, other than that, we get to furnish a cavern. Yeah, we do have... I've got to remember what I've been doing. It's always annoying. Right, that allows us to go and then... build a slaughtering cave. I think the slaughtering cave is the one, even though wheat... Yeah, we definitely want to do it that way around. We're going to have our animals produce themselves food at this point, so that is 2 stone. Delete, delete, and 2 wood. All gone. That gives us 2 victory points, and every time we slaughter an animal, we now get an extra 1. So, that's the end of that round. Field phase. So to start with, I get that back. Your last wheat is back. And your last wheat is back. I think that they might have done something wrong, but only because they both ended at the same time, unless I wasn't paying attention. One of those might have had to come off earlier. Oh well. Next up, feeding phase. So, I must pay 4 food. I am actually going to use my 2 food here, and the pumpkin I've just made, and that's me sorted on that front. Red. Now, Red is going to slaughter one of the sheep for 2 food. And then she still needs a little more food, so I'm actually going to go and slaughter a second one. And 1 pumpkin. Actually, no. We're going to slaughter the. We're going to slaughter 3 sheep. No, actually, we don't want to slaughter 3 sheep because that's counterintuitive. Yeah, right. 2 sheep go away. Oh, and also be very careful using backstep because it always surprises you how far back it actually goes. But that is just the one there. So I need 2 more food. So I think we go and move pumpkin. Now, just for reference, based on Agricola, the begging cards aren't as critical as they are in the game because the scores are roughly twice what they are in the Agricola. So it's basically half as bad as it is in Agricola in a lot of ways. You can take begging cards and still go on to win. So 4 food required up here. We have 2 food, and we have a ruby which we're going to spend on 2 food. And then breeding phase. Because we have space in our home, we now have a 4th sheep now here. So that's going quite well. We did keep the breeding pair here, which was vitally important for us, so that was there. And what we're going to do now is go and do a bit of swapping, I think. Because I can hold 2... Yeah, again, right-click to hold things down. We're going to sacrifice this for 2 food. But I had to do this after I got him, which is why I knew what the plan was, I just didn't do it correctly. And that means the 2 pigs can move into the pasture. And also, we get another pig. So we now have 3 of those. I suppose I could have kept him in there in all honesty, but that free food is... Yeah, it's fine for now. I could have swapped things around and done that properly. Alright, mine doesn't breed because he's on his own. So that is the end of my little Let's Play Caverna, and basically confused a lot of people, and myself included, by playing a board game or tabletop simulator. We're halfway through the game. At some stage I might come back and complete this free-player game. But we'll see how the reception is on this and whether people feel that they want me to continue. And if they do, well, we shall continue the valiant adventures of red, green, and white as we attempt to continue playing Caverna to the end. So, till next time.